right, let's get it started. Hi, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, SAP Migration Lessons Learned today, presented by Alex Butler, our VP of Sales here at REALTECH. If you have any questions during the presentation, there is a chat box you can utilize, and we can get to them at the end. So with that being said, Alex, do you want to take it over?
Sure. Thanks, Carly. Hi, everyone. This is Alex Butler. I'm the Vice President of Sales for REALTECH. Today, we are going to be talking about some lessons learned around SAP migrations. And REALTECH, being a pioneer in the industry when it comes to SAP migrations, we've certainly encountered quite a few different scenarios and situations, and we're here to share a little bit about some of the lessons that we've learned ourselves and share them with you to help you plan properly for SAP migrations today. Hang on one sec. Let's see if we can get the slides. There we go. So basically, we'll start off. We'll talk a little bit about REALTECH and our history surrounding SAP migrations and what REALTECH, the company, is all about. We'll talk about the SAP migrations themselves, what's involved, and get into the lessons learned and answer any questions at the end. And like Carly said, feel free to submit a question in the chat window, and we'll try to get this answered for you. So a little bit about REALTECH before we dive into the lessons learned. The company was founded back in 1994 in Waldorf, Germany, by 4 ex-SAP consultants who they were actually involved in the SAP implementation at Deutsche Post. Huge success for not only SAP, but for the customer. And they basically, the consultants involved in the project basically used that experience to help found REALTECH and build a practice on supporting customers worldwide with SAP implementations and platform and application modernization and improvements. Today we have over 2,200 customers worldwide. We have a presence in 5 countries, and we're primarily staffed with technical SAP consultants. And just to give you a little better understanding of what we offer, we have 2 sides of the business. We have our SAP consulting practice, which focuses on SAP OSDB migrations, upgrades, SAP HANA projects, helping move SAP workloads to the cloud, and managed services primarily around SAP basis consulting. And then on the other side of the house, we have a complete portfolio of software that was developed in-house by REALTECH many, many years ago, and we're well known in the industry around SAP change management. So we have some solutions for change process management, the automation of DevOps for transport management, and synchronizing. We have a tool that can help synchronize dual development landscapes. And one thing we also help customers with is an environmental assessment. And if customers are struggling to understand where to make investments when it comes to SAP and how to properly invest in performance improvements, we can certainly help there. That's a solution we've had in the market for several years. So why REALTECH? First off, we are SAP certified migration experts, and I'll talk a little bit more about that during the course of the presentation and why this is important. We have many decades of experience. We actually have performed the first production SAP migration in the world in early 1998. So we go way back to the days of R2, prior to R3, and I believe the first migration may have gone to the Microsoft platform, but since that migration, we've performed over 1,000 migrations and counting with a 100% success rate. So many, many years of experience. And we'll talk more today about why that experience matters. So first off, I want to dive into the SAP migration itself and why customers migrate. What's motivating a customer to perform a migration? So if you're currently an SAP install customer, I'm sure you've heard of SAP HANA. This has been in the market for over 7 years now. This is the future direction of SAP. This is the in-memory database that has been in the market for a few years, and it's really a game changer for SAP and for the SAP customers, helping process information at light speed, if you will, and helping basically to improve business decisions in a much faster manner. So another factor would be, okay, a lot of CIOs and CFOs are investing in the cloud. So that's certainly a motivating factor, is to get that agility of being able to spin up a VM in a matter of minutes instead of having to provision traditional hardware or infrastructure and waiting weeks before it's stood up. Other factors could include mergers and divestitures and the need to standardize the application on a single platform across the board. So there's certainly a lot of that in the market today in all industries. Other factors could include reducing TCO, reducing your spend. Let's get better control of costs. There's certainly you could be running into a situation where either your licensing cost for the hardware or software is increasing, and that's something that you want to gain control of, and perhaps your last investment on your infrastructure has reached its hardware life cycle, and it's time to reinvest. So another could be that the OS and database platform that you're running on today has been in the market for many years, and you reached end of life when it comes to supporting those applications and databases. So it could be time to make a move, and you want to work closely with your partners and vendors on what's supported and what makes sense from a roadmap standpoint to continue supporting SAP for your business. So a little bit more about what's involved in an SAP migration. So the technical name is called an OSDB migration, or better known as a heterogeneous system copy. So this involves when you're changing the operating system, the database, or both. So there's a couple of examples. Say if you're going from Solaris running on Oracle, or if you're going to Linux and DB2, anytime you're changing up any of those flavors, that's considered, in our world, in the SAP world, that's considered a migration. If you're simply performing a infrastructure refresh and your OS and DB are staying the same, that's considered a lift and shift or a refresh. So migrations are slightly more complex, so there's a bit more involved, and we would say that you want to plan for typically about 12 to 16 weeks per SAP landscape for a migration, and that's a migration for each of the systems within that landscape. Dev, quality, production. If you have any additional non-production systems, those would need to be migrated if you're bringing all of that data along as well. And you want to also plan for regression testing. This is a heavy involvement from your teams, or perhaps your partners if they handle the testing aspect. Typically 4 to 8 weeks, depending on how large your environment is. We always recommend maintaining a passive fallback. This is not only our recommendation, but SAP's recommendation as best practice. So this is something that you must follow. A passive fallback provides you with that safety net of if there's any sort of catastrophic failure. Once you try to go live, you can fall back to that previous state. REALTECH, we have never had to implement that, so I'd like to think that we know what we're doing since we've done this quite a few hundreds of times and have, in a sense, perfected our methodology. So one thing you want to remember around SAP migrations is that the project plan and the migration itself, it requires approval by SAP, and SAP is going to not only validate your project plan, but they're going to validate who's involved in the project. They're going to make sure, they're going to check their S-user ID and make sure that they are, in fact, an SAP certified migration consultant. And this is a rare certification. So typical in-house basis staff may typically not have this sort of certification. So you may have to look for partners to work with in this sense. If you do have certified folks in-house, that's great. You definitely want to hold on to those valuable resources before they start their own practice. So why do customers and partners turn to REALTECH for SAP migrations? Well, when you're moving all of your data from a source platform to a target platform, and you're basically asking your certified partner to uplift and move all of your data to that target platform. It's really, in a sense, like performing open heart surgery, if you will. You do not want to have any sort of data corruption to any of your tables. You cannot present any additional risk to the business by having things go awry and the migration being a failure. So there are inherent risks in a migration. That's why you'll find many companies often avoiding the need to migrate until it's time. But rest assured, it's not impossible. We have proven it time and time again that the migrations themselves, if you follow the procedure to the T and to the letter, all of your data will, in fact, remain intact. Everything is moved exactly as it was from the source system to the target environment, and we can help you minimize downtime and perform these migrations. And we take on the risk. If you don't want to have any in-house finger pointing, if things go wrong, we will take on that risk, and you can put the target on our back, and we'd be happy to help you prove to the business that this can be a success. So the first lesson we'd like to start out with is building a business case. And the reason why this is important is you need to talk to some of the business leaders as well as the IT leaders and confirm the business drivers. Like if the driver is, let's say, cost cutting, you want to evaluate your current total cost of ownership, your current spend from a software licensing standpoint to a hardware standpoint to your storage. Talk about all of that, come up with an in-house calculator on mapping out each of the areas where you currently spend, and then get an estimate from your migration partner on what it would take to for the new migration itself. There's a cost involved in the migration. You want to understand what that cost is, and then also consider your staff, the recurring costs. How many team members from your own basis staff and your own department staff, the finance department, HR, sales, the application owners, when their teams need to get involved, how many resources are going to be involved in each step, and how much time are they going to have to allot to each step within the project. So those are perhaps a little bit more of the soft costs involved, but you know, your hardware, software, and implementation costs are some of the hard costs. Determine the business benefits. I mean, you definitely want to look at, okay, are we going to be able to decrease our spend? If we move to this new platform, is it going to help us increase revenues? Why are we doing this? If there's no compelling reason, then you may want to just consider refreshing your infrastructure. But if there's a compelling reason, okay, hey, if we migrate to Linux, we can significantly cut our internal costs from a software standpoint. We can perhaps you know, become more agile when it comes to deploying new infrastructure for the business. There could be many benefits, and you want to talk about those business benefits and what they mean to you and your customers. The other thing we want to talk about is planning and planning early. We cannot stress this enough, especially if everyone's aware that the S4 HANA deadline and the current support for ECC will expire at the end of 2025. So you're not alone. There are tens of thousands of other SAP customers who are in the same boat. So don't wait until the last 18 months to make your move to S4 HANA if that's when everyone else is doing it, because there's going to be a shortage of these certified migration resources out there to be able to perform the work for you. So, you know, just plan early, get ahead of the curve, verify that your current application releases meet all of the technical requirements. If perhaps you're on EC6, but you're only on Enhancement Pack 3 or 4, you're going to have to get things up to speed, up to date on at least Enhancement Pack 7, if not 8, before you move to S4 HANA. If you are already there and you're in the midst of planning for a conversion, start getting your staff trained on SAP HANA. Let's get familiar with the SAP Fiori interface, get training on Linux, and get everyone trained on the HANA database. If you're going from an Oracle database to HANA, that's going to be a big one for your teams. And you want to plan that prior to go live. Don't dump it on your team the weekend after go live and say, all right, now let's get trained and figure this thing out. You want to be ahead of the curve on all of that. So planning early, like I said, I cannot stress this enough. You want to plan for the future. Don't just plan for tomorrow, but plan for supporting SAP and just supporting your business 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road from an infrastructure standpoint and an application standpoint. So, work with your partners on building that roadmap, determine where you want to be 3, 4 years from now, and sort things out. And I have a story to share today about why plan early and why you want to select the right tools and partners for the job. Well, so over the weekend, yesterday in fact, my 2 sons were invited to a birthday party at a friend's house, and we were supposed to go over for cake and ice cream at 4 o'clock, and we were on our way. We were going to be there at about 2 o'clock. So we had a couple hours. We had planned to be there early so we could take a bike ride with the kids, then come back, and everyone could hang out and have fun. Well, the dad had ended up purchasing a basketball hoop and backboard for his son, and he had decided to build it before the party. So I called on my way there and found that at 2 o'clock, he had just opened the box to start building the backboard. This was a bit of a shock. I knew there was no way he would get that done before 4 o'clock, before people started showing up. And then the other thing regarding the right tool for the right job, we found that as we started the project, his socket set was inadequate for doing the job, and it really made it a hard time in getting things done. We definitely missed the 4 o'clock deadline. I think we finished it by 5, but we ended up borrowing neighbors' tools and whatnot. And you don't want to do that in a situation where you're moving to a new platform with your SAP application for the business. So plan early, get your partners involved early. We're here to help. Additional information regarding the migration itself. You want to check the prerequisites. If you're non-Unicode, you want to make sure that you're on Unicode. You want to be on NetWeaver 7 or higher. If you're planning to go to S4 HANA, work with your partners or SAP support to check the product availability matrix. Make sure things are compatible with the new OS and DB platform that you're choosing. SAP and we will always recommend, if you're looking at HANA, perform the HANA Quick Sizer. If you don't want to do that, you want to have your partner do that, we can certainly help with that as well. If you want to take a look at your technical architecture, I'll talk about that more in a minute. But basically, you want to start evaluating, what makes sense for you from an infrastructure standpoint. Then after everything, after you've checked off everything on this list, you can start planning, performing, and executing the migrations. And then these migrations will take a course of weeks. And at the end of each migration, you want to test that everything has been migrated successfully. This is an important step that we can help map out what needs to be tested. And basically, this determines when you can turn over the application back to the business users once everything has been validated. So another example I want to provide here from some of the lessons in our prior migrations. So this is what a typical let's say a Unix to Linux migration cutover would look like. These are going to be dependent upon database size. So if you have a 1 terabyte or 500 gigabyte database, you can perform those migrations in a weekend. Typical process would be preparing the application, prepare the OSDB migration, perform the cutover, let's say on a Friday evening. The export and import, depending on the solution that's being used, whether that's R3 load or whatever SAP migration toolkit is being used, some DMO option perhaps. The export import runs in parallel, so you'll be moving data in parallel, and you're going to have a certain amount of time of downtime where the application is considered offline and inaccessible. So you're going to log all your users off, have them offline. In this example, we have a wide range between 10 and 32 hours, depending on the database size. And then after the technical migration is completed, that's when we hand it back over for the testing, the configuration and testing, and that's performed by the customer. And that step, depending on, again, the database size, can take quite a few hours, and you want to try and have the application up and running for the users on Monday morning, if not even over the weekend. If the database is small, half a terabyte or less, these can easily be performed over the weekend. Multi-terabyte, 10, 15 terabyte databases, you're going to plan for a longer downtime window. We can definitely help you out with that, but The migration cutovers, this is a repeatable process. The migrations get faster with each migration test run that you perform, and we can walk you through that as well as far as how to improve downtime. My main slide here today consists of several lessons that we've learned. So first, be open and honest about your cloud strategy. Tell your partners, are you planning to invest in private cloud? Are you going all in on public cloud? Do you have no interest in the cloud, or do you, are you planning for a hybrid cloud strategy? Just be honest with it. Be honest with everyone from the business side to the vendor side, and make sure that everyone's on the same page. Check your network. This is critical. If you've been getting by on a slow connection between your data centers, you've never had an issue with any data center, but at this point, we're now asking you to move large volumes of data between your current data center and your new data center. You must check the network. The reason why I mention this is one of our migrations, we were in a situation where we were migrating an 11 terabyte BW database, and the customer only had a 300 megabit pipe between the two data centers. Our team referred to that as trying to move a watermelon through a garden hose. It was not easy. There were not just several hours, but several days worth of downtime. We're talking, I believe the best we were seeing at the 300 meg connection was about 5.5 days of downtime. And that's certainly not a situation you want to be in when you're trying to perform customer transactions. So we recommend a minimum of 1 gig connection between data centers, and preferably 10 gig. Next lesson, if your plan is to move to HANA, whether it's S4 or just utilizing the HANA database, verify the infrastructure environment. And what I mean by that is we had a customer situation where we started performing some migrations for the proof of concept. So we had 3 or 4 landscapes that we moved over the course of the first 3 months. And at the end of that, we started to get into the second phase, and the second phase was going to involve HANA. And we found that that new data center that we had just moved those 4 applications to, that was not set up or capable of supporting SAP HANA. So we had to take an 11-month timeline that we had initially allotted, where we started in early January and the final go live was planned for the end of November. And we now had to get everything done in 7 months. So we lost the first 3.5, 4 months worth of time because the data center wasn't ready. And you want to validate that with your infrastructure partners if you're investing in HANA. We won't forget that one, so we don't want you to forget it either. So we also recommend anticipating unforeseen delays. What I mean by this is, in your project timeline, we always build a little bit of slack. There are always going to be some sort of delays, either from the SAP side or the infrastructure side or the business side. It's impossible to avoid. So you want to build time that allows you to catch up on phases that consumed too much time, and that way you keep your original go live on schedule. We can certainly help you with your project planning efforts in that respect. Many migration activities can be performed in parallel, but testing is a big factor. Your teams can only test so fast, so we can't dump a half a dozen application migrations on your testing team and expect them to turn that around in 2 or 3 weeks. it's not fair to them, and it's not possible. The next lesson we'd like to share with you is organizing your data. I will talk about this a little further on another slide, but going up a couple points before, like if you're investing in HANA, HANA's based on in-memory. You want to organize your data. This is not only going to help you from a business standpoint, but from an SAP investment standpoint, from licensing to storage impacts. And we'll talk about that in a minute. Be honest about your in-house basis and HANA skills. So, just assess your team members. Be honest with what you're capable of. Be honest with what your partners are capable of. Are they completely capable and you trust them with your life, or are you constantly questioning what's happening and why things are taking so long? When it comes to a migration, this is not something that you want to entrust someone that's they may be a fine basis consultant or basis team who's supporting the business, but if they've never been through a migration and if they haven't performed not just one but several migrations before, this isn't the type of project that you want to put them on. This is not something where they can learn on the job. Any sort of data corruption can impact the business dramatically, and you don't want to do that. Next point, talk about your high availability and disaster recovery strategy early in the planning. DR and HA, they're necessary evils for certain situations and certain customers. High availability is maintaining the critical uptime of the application, and you want to talk about what your vision is around which applications need high availability, which ones are going to need disaster recovery failover, and plan for this early. Don't have this thrown into the lap of your OS vendor or the migration consulting team after go live and say, okay, now that we've migrated it, let's get this set up. We've seen that happen before. We don't want it to be an afterthought because it is very important and it does take time to set up. It's not just a matter of a couple of days. This is several days worth of effort to get this set up correctly. Avoid delays with Active Directory. And what I mean by this is your Active Directory team in-house or are they outsourced? What does it take to provision security access to certain applications? So, for instance, REALTECH, we performed migrations for clients where we completed the migration and we're ready to move on to making moves with the next application, and we submit the access request, and then it's several days before we get that access completed. And we were submitting the access request prior to the completion of the prior migration, but it was still taking several days and we were encountering delays. And it's not something you want to have, is a team of high dollar migration consultants sitting around waiting on access. It's costing you and the company money, and you don't want to do that. The next lesson we want to emphasize is have realistic downtime expectations. The illustration I provided before gave you a good idea on like a typical weekend cutover, for something less than a terabyte. But the reality sets in when you have systems that are 5 terabytes, 10 plus 20 terabytes. I mean, there's going to be significant downtime, and make sure that the business understands that, okay, your application is going to go offline. We will not know what that exact downtime is until the first test migration is performed. And I want to emphasize that. We can provide guesses and ranges based on our experience, but until we work on your application and we see the I/O and the network throughput, no one will be able to give you a realistic downtime until that has been completed. So, the larger the database, the longer the downtime. It's pretty simple, but you cannot take guesses on downtime and disappoint the business. That's not a situation you want to be in. Lastly, discuss your post-go live vision with your partner. More often than not, REALTECH, we find ourselves, we always account for post-go live support, but then we find ourselves being asked by the customer to perform additional work after the post-go live support period has completed. And this is something that you want to consider. If you're using another vendor for some additional project and they are fully consumed with that at the end of your go live, and you're looking for some additional basis help or an extension of your team to get you until that partner is complete with their other project, talk about that situation with your partners months prior to go live. Try not to wait until the last couple of weeks lead up to go live to consider talking about this, or even after go live, which we see quite often. Don't consider it an afterthought. Plan ahead and set your teams up accordingly. So, regarding infrastructure lessons, this is something that we've been helping customers out with, especially over the past year, is evaluating the benefits of different infrastructure platforms. So the point I brought up before about what is your company's cloud strategy. If you're not sure what that cloud strategy is, you want to talk about the pros and cons of each, and what the cost benefits look like between if you go all in on public cloud with AWS or Azure. Do you want your own private cloud through one of your infrastructure partners? Do you want a hybrid cloud? Or will you be fine without any cloud? Are you anti-cloud because of the security impacts that many people consider? So this is something that we can help you evaluate different vendors, consider the pros and cons of each. You probably want to work up a scorecard to evaluate what makes sense for the business, what's going to provide you with the most agility versus the best cost benefit. Next, outside of cloud, does a colo facility provide you with more flexibility? Is this going to give you better security and better control, having a regional or local colo facility that your team can visit and work out of and administer your own infrastructure? This is something that you want to talk about. Does a hosting partner make sense? Well, hosting partners, if you don't want to manage your infrastructure in-house anymore and you're lean on your basis team, and you want that application support, you want that infrastructure support to be managed by someone else completely, hosting partners are a great choice. What does your future state SAP environment look like? What's your vision? Like, where are you going to invest in SAP for the future? And are you investing in more of the SAP cloud applications? The success factors, the Ariba, the integrated business planning. Are you investing in the HANA database? Are you going to S4 HANA? Each of those questions and answers will have an impact on what type of infrastructure that you want to consider and whether to keep it in-house or outsource it. So these are some questions we can try to help you answer. But again, you want to talk to your partners, talk to your vendors, and just get the conversations flowing and lay all the chips on the table. And if you need to go out to bid, go out to bid. Going back to the data footprint and assessing your data footprint. Well, you definitely want to consider that SAP HANA and the SAP HANA licensing fees are based on in-memory consumption. So do you need all of that 7 to 10-year-old sales order data in your core ERP, or is that something that you can set aside and perhaps archive so you can shrink your core database? And if you can, this can help you save money tremendously when it comes to the SAP HANA licensing fees. And if you do that, the storage impacts will reap you benefits as well. If you reduce your footprint on the front end, it reduces it on the back end. Perhaps shrink your storage cost as well. It's going to be a win-win for the company. This is something that you want to plan way before you do the migration. This is something you want to talk to your partners, or if you have capabilities in-house, start doing that now. If you're planning to move to HANA next year, do it this year. Archive your data, figure out how to structure everything, and next year you'll be in a good position. So a customer example I'll provide you with today is one of the Dupont spinoffs, a company named Chemours. We migrated their entire SAP environment, over 20 landscapes. We moved all of the non-production systems. This was a hybrid solution. So all of their non-production went to the cloud on Azure, and then all of production stayed on-prem in a new data center. And basically, this customer was able to reduce their spend significantly from an infrastructure standpoint by moving workloads to the cloud. They were fully embracing cloud architecture. This is just an example of some of the benefits and a customer example for a recent migration. The value proposition that we'd like to leave you with today is engage REALTECH early in the planning process. Utilize our team. We are vendor neutral, so we are not an infrastructure reseller. We're not an SAP reseller. We're not going to push SAP licensing to you. We will help you make the best decision based on SAP best practices and based on our experience. And it will help you evaluate the pros and cons of each. How we can help you is we can help you build that SAP roadmap, assess and analyze your infrastructure options. If you need help archiving data prior to a migration, we can lend a hand there. We can help you with planning and executing the migration itself. This is key. Many customers come to REALTECH. If partners come to REALTECH, the IBMs, Microsofts, AWS, you name it, that they rely on REALTECH for our migration expertise. So if you know that you're planning for a potential migration in 2020 and you want to get things going now, you want to start looking at your data footprint, but you also want to reach out to a partner like REALTECH to have us help you get your arms around the budget involved in the SAP migration itself. We'll provide you with a high-level timeline on how quickly can this be executed, and we'll give you an estimate on what the the cost would look like, and project duration. We can also help you with post-migration support, depending on what you need. So I just want to leave you with that. And a call to action today is something that we announced earlier this year. REALTECH, we are currently offering a free migration proof of concept. So what this means for customers and partners is, if you'd like to evaluate an application running on HANA, we will perform the migration for you for free. This is one system of your choice, not several, hopefully. But what we'd like to do is help you prove to the business that there are potential business benefits from the migration, and that you also build the confidence and in your partner with REALTECH that, hey, this is possible. We can do this safely and securely, and do this seamlessly with REALTECH. And we'd love to help you out. This is a limited time offer that we announced recently, and we just wanted to share that with everyone today on the call. Here's a few examples of customer migrations. Just some customers that we've migrated to a variety of platforms. We've pretty much moved customers to and from all SAP certified operating systems and databases across over the past few decades. So you name it, we've done it. Talk to us about our experience. And here's a snapshot of some of our global customers as well. So that's about all I had to share for today. I wanted to thank everyone for your time. You can follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter at realtech-us or realtech.inc. Again, my name's Alex. I'll leave you with my contact information today. Feel free to reach out anytime with any questions. As a matter of fact, Carly, do we have any questions today?
Alex, it looks like there are no questions currently. If anyone does have a question, please feel free to unmute yourself or just write it in the chat window. And also, for a few closing statements, we are attending SAP Sapphire in May, so if you will be there, please feel free to make an appointment with us. And we also have an ebook coming out shortly about your ROI when moving to HANA.
Excellent. All right. Thank you, Carly, and thanks everyone for joining today.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.